It's the best 300 Blackout gun there is. You can argue with me, but I want to see it. Test it. I've never lost a competitive trial with this gun.
Hey everyone, James Reeves, TFBTV. It is my honor to have Mr. Adam Agri on the program today. We are talking about one of my most favorite guns with one of my most favorite people, the SIG MCX Rattler.
Awesome, yeah.
And I know you're pumped about this.
I am.
I'm pumped about this. We actually made this a separate video. We just did your manifesto, your personal manifesto about the history of the MCX. I'm sure that video is like an hour long. Okay. So before we get into the MCX Rattler, what is your involvement with the MCX Rattler?
Very heavy. So I remember it vividly when it started. So the Rattler was, if I back into like the weeds of this, the Rattler was a mistake. So we had a couple of people, and you know in this industry, there's a lot of hearing damage, right? You got operators that are blowing stuff up, hearing's not so good. Well, we had a sales guy at the time who was in charge of Europe, who was very deaf, had dual hearing aids, and another person, an operator, asking for, what is the shortest MCX you make? He heard MPX. Well, the answer is 4.5 inches. And from that conversation, a gun was born. Really, it was that. It was
just that mistake.
That mistake, and then the ball was rolling, where they're starting to write requirements, and we had to either fulfill those requirements or not have the order.
And it turns out he wasn't DEAF, he was just plain old DEF, deaf. Because the sickest gun of all time came from that hearing mistake.
Yeah.
And you started at SIG 20 years ago in like the finishing department.
Yes.
And you've worked your way up to, what's the official title, the titular?
Yeah, so I'm Director of Technical Sales and Support for Defense Product Management.
You've got easily 1 million rounds through the MCX,
yes.
would you say?
Yeah, 750, maybe closing.
Okay, well, okay. Well, maybe
someday.
Maybe someday we'll get a guy with 1 million rounds through the platform on here. But in the meantime, we'll settle for you.
Yeah.
I think maybe just in case there are people that have not seen or will not see the full MCX story, let's just talk briefly about how the MCX came to be and then how we got diverted off into the Rattler.
So there was 2 U.S. programs, LVAW and CSurge. They had unique requirements. One was a 300 Blackout system. One was a drop-on upper receiver. Both of them were suppressed. Those 2 systems kind of started our path down making suppressors, making a gun that was purpose-built, designed to be suppressed all the time. And those 2 systems came together and became the MCX.
Right.
Everything we learned from those trials and those tests, we kept adding into this new gun, which didn't have a name for a little while, and that became what we know now as the MCX. Both those programs we won. CSurge became Surge, we won that, and the LVAW, everybody knows that we won that as well.
Right, so the MCX is a huge success. We're talking about like 2015, like your first major award for it. Yeah, so over 10 years ago, and it's evolved. But now let's go back. When was the mistake? When was the conversation?
I'd have to look through I think I still have the email.
You can ballpark it. Yeah.
I remember this vividly. I was in another country. It was like 2 in the morning. I'm finishing up some emails and I get one fires into my inbox and it's like, hey, we're going to make a drawing for a 4.5 inch 5.56 gun. And I'm pounding my keyboard like, this is stupid. What are we doing? Like, you might as well get them a 22 Magnum.
Yeah.
Totally against it in the beginning. But by the time I got home, Doug Aubin, the guy that we talked about earlier.
Who is Doug?
Doug is he's a lead gunsmith in our special weapons group. And Doug is the guy, like, you have an idea and he will make it become reality. And over the weekend, like we're talking like 3 days. I got back, there was a shooting prototype. Which is
insane.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna look at it and you'll see that it's held together with like washers from like Home Depot. You know, like
junk.
But it's a concept demonstrator. Can we do this? Yes. So from that initial requirement, we want a 14.5 inch overall length gun, which was really short, to replace the MP5K. That was the goal. Replace the MP5K. And this is like, I'm thinking it was the beginning of 2016 when these talks happened. The initial requirements, like when I got home, I got on the phone with the user. I'm like, hey, listen, like I have experience with these short barrel guns. I know what's going to happen. We weren't timing gas ports back then, which we talked about in the full MCX video. I'm like, I know for a fact your gas ports will wear out and erode within 1,500 to 2,000 rounds. So let's set some realistic guardrails.
Yeah.
And it was, this gun will not last longer than 2,000 rounds.
And they were okay with that?
Good to go.
Okay.
I'm like, accuracy, don't expect anything past 25 meters. Good to go. And to them, at this time, and I'm not going to talk about who the end user was, this is a throwaway gun. We're going to pull it out of this glove box that it has to fit in, a Toyota Hilux. We're going to pull it out. We're going to shoot through the windscreen and
dump it.
And then exfil and dump it when we need to.
Yeah.
That's the total purpose of this gun.
They would way rather have this that would fit, by the way, as a car nerd and a Japanese car nerd, you know, Toyota, the Hilux is, of course, like the coolest truck. Everybody knows the Hilux. But they would way rather have something that would fall apart after 300 or 400 rounds.
Correct.
You know, just super low round count as long as it fit in that glove box versus something bigger that would last 1,000,000 rounds because they don't care. They
don't care. It has to fit that box. That's the envelope. If it doesn't fit, get it out of here.
So they were good with all these limitations.
Yes. And from there, you know, we started testing, and sure enough, around 1,700 rounds. And this gun that we're going to look at has about 1,700 rounds. It's starting to keyhole. The gas port's washed out. It is like max function because it's, you know, your gas port grows so quickly. And it did meet their requirements, but, you know, we understand this is a closed door conversation, right?
Yeah, sure.
With an end user that has, maybe they're going to buy 50, 100 of these maximum. But if this gun goes out into the world, no one will know these requirements. So they're going to say, you have a gun that's a piece of junk.
Shit.
Right? Yeah. And we can't do that.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way because no one ever knows the backstory of the development. So during this time, we started to make tweaks, and I'll pick up the gun and we can talk about it. So this is the very first Rattler ever made.
Really?
Yes,
I
very
thought
first
it was
one.
Crappier.
Yeah. So it's using a Gen 1 upper receiver, so a legacy upper receiver, so the lightweight, very similar to what you have on your Gen 3 MCX. It's actually the same extrusion. Everything's shortened up. Now you can see the muzzle device is not really even a muzzle device. It's just so you don't have a bare muzzle.
Right, yeah.
Muzzle flash is humongous. But there were some things that once we started to build this, they're like we talked
potential.
through. Well, there was, and we talked through some scenarios, right? So at the time we had what everybody on the internet calls the Kate Moss stock. And we had our telefold stock that had just come out. Well, the issues were, we want to mount a vertical grip to this possibly. So we have like an MP5K style grip. Well, when you have a stock that has a larger butt pad and it extends further, it's going to hit your wrist and knock it out of position. So you can't really grip that vertical grip. So we're like, okay, let's design a butt stock that when it's folded, you can still get a vertical grip on this gun and it doesn't interfere with your shooting. Next thing was like, hey, we want to be able to access the controls. So we had to design it so all of the controls, the bolt catch and release, the magazine catch, and the selectors weren't blocked by the buttstock. Couple other things, they were like, hey, we're going to be slinging this gun and running up and down ladders. We want it as low profile as possible. So in typical special weapons fashion, one of the guys that used to work with us, he took the aluminum deflectors. Remember I said we had aluminum? Well, he just ground it down. And you can see there's still that steel insert, but this is a handmade one. We ground it down. It would have had a forward assist in it, and that became the first low profile deflector. And the reason is when this is slung on my back, I don't have a forward assist jamming me in the spine.
Your back,
The next thing was like, well, we tried that. We were running around with this thing on our back. The charging handles, man, they're digging into me. They're getting caught on stuff. So you can see these are white. We ground them down, made them as small as possible, made them low profile. So this became what is now shipping on the Rattler as the small grip, the small latches. So those three things were purely driven by the Rattler program. Yeah.
And then you do all this stuff, and then and you show them this, and they're like, "Oh no, we're good."
Yeah, no, they were like, "This is great. Can you make it in 300 Blackout?" Absolutely. And when we
Even better.
as soon as we went into 300 Blackout, I was still on the fence, and I was still kind of fighting it internally. I don't talk about this often, but yeah, I thought that a short-barreled 4.5-inch 5.56 didn't make sense, and I didn't want users to get it down the road
and be like, what a piece of junk.
This thing sucks.
Yeah. But did you deliver any of those? Any of the super short 5.56?
So no, this one was a test mule. They came to us, they shot it,
and they're like,
and they're like,
rather,
and then they're like, well, we're working on another program for them with 300 Blackout with both 6.75-inch and 9-inch guns. They were gonna have like an SD version and like an assaulter type version, and they're like, you know what? Can you make this in Blackout? And we did. And
so the 5.56 never, like the 5.56 never happened.
It didn't happen until later on down the road.
They changed their mind like after this whole deal with the, you know, how
well, they
small
saw the potential of the supersonic 300 Blackout versus 5.56 in a short barrel package. So this was the concept demonstrator, and when I brought this to SHOT Show, like I brought it in my toolbox. It was hidden. I kept it in my backpack. Actually, the backpack that's downstairs, and I was pulling it out like I was a drug dealer, you know. Like, check it out. So I heard there's this gun here, and like I'm pulling it out of the bag, and then put it right back in the bag, and like people were really excited about it.
Oh, sure.
But I mean, you have a muzzle flash that's like 2 feet long,
and it's junk after 2,000 rounds.
Yeah, but nobody knew that at the point.
Sure.
But when Blackout came on, that's when things really started to pick up, and that's when I fully got behind this gun, and everybody that was working on it was like, wow, the potential of this is incredible. We were shooting, so one of our first test guns, actually I have it right here. So this is the first semi-production Rattler upper. This is number 2. There was 2 of these. I don't know where the other one is, but this is the last one that's left. So this is one of the 300 Blackout guns. You can see it's in key mod because at the time, M-Lock wasn't a thing yet, full thing. But this gun was the test mule. We brought this, a couple of these to be tested out for hot weather trials during that other program I was talking about. And that's when the users started to get a hold of it. That's when the US Navy first saw this gun. And as you know, the Navy has the Rattler. And some of their feedback made its way into this gun as well. We sat down with a notebook. Hey, what do you want to change? What do we need to do? And we took notes and we made those changes.
Well, we need to talk about pressure, I think, just briefly, because you might have some viewers out there who might not know. It's like, well, why did it make sense for 300 Blackout but not 5.56?
Yeah, so it comes down to 300 Blackout is ideally suited to shorter barrels. Like you get full powder burn right around 9.5, 10 inches. 5.56 with the ammo that we're talking about, M855, SS109 projectiles, that's designed for a 20-inch barrel. When you start coming into the 10.5, I mean, realistically 10.5 isn't even long enough, in my opinion, to have fragmentation of that projectile.
Yeah, of course.
For performance. When you go into specialty rounds like the 70 grain TSX and some others, yeah, you can gain a lot of that back with the short barrels.
Right.
But they're purpose built for these smaller guns. But even still, if I start cutting that barrel, I mean, how much rifling does it look like we have on this?
Right.
I think there may be 1/2 inch of rifling on this gun.
Just for fun.
Because if you
The
look,
suggestion of rifling.
the chamber's right here, the projectile tip is right here, that's where your gas port is, and then I have a muzzle device. We're talking this much. What are you getting there?
Right.
Velocity, you're way low. I think this one was in the 1,600 feet per second.
and you need to, like for reliable fragmentation, around 2,500 feet per second.
Yeah, minimum.
You're way short of that.
And even the expanding rounds won't expand
Yeah.
at that low velocity, right? Reliably. So realistically, the 300 Blackout, it's tuned for that shorter barrel. We're still getting the performance, but on the Rattler, it was really primarily designed as a supersonic, as small as we can make it package. Now, can it shoot subs? Yes. There are limitations to it because you have a very short gas system, the dwell time's not that much. So it's a little more sensitive to like the gamut of ammunitions that are out there. And that's why some people might not be happy with it as if that's their one gun purchase because of the limitations of all the ammos that are out there. And as you know, like even when we're talking about M855, there's like a 200 feet per second or RPM spread between the brands.
Yeah, sure.
And that really changes the function of the system.
Yeah.
200 RPM is a lot.
Yeah.
That means the gun runs or it doesn't. So when we're talking blackouts and subsonics where it's on the edge, it's hard with the Rattler to get it run, especially if you don't have a suppressor with any type of blowback, if you will, like a flow suppressor.
Yeah.
It's really on the edge. It's basically like shooting an unsuppressed gun subsonic, and it's hard. Now with the newest Rattler that you have, the LT, that's all been solved.
Right.
That's using a longer gas system. We have more optimized ports sizes that can really function with a much wider range of subsonic ammunitions. So it's more ideally suited to pretty much anything you can throw at it.
Yeah.
The Rattler is very purpose driven.
Right, and to get back on track then to where we were in the narrative before I interrupted you to talk about like why 300 would work and 5.56 was less than optimal.
It's less than optimal. Yeah.
So they come back, this customer comes back and says like, look, we want to do this in 300 Blackout.
Yep.
You say, okay, let's start developing.
Yes, and that's where these came in. So when we tested these, we were able to print groups at 300 meters. I have the pictures on my phone. Less than 3 inches.
That's insane.
Which I would say is not typical, but we were thinking the shorter typical knowledge, right? The shorter you go, the less accurate a gun is.
Right. It's not necessarily true.
It's not necessarily true. You have more limiting factors. Your velocity goes down, which means that wind can affect it more, but it's a stiffer barrel actually when it's shorter. Right. So you have less barrel whip and a lot of things happen. So the gun was really accurate. Now I'm saying that group size that we saw, probably not gonna be production for all the guns, but you might get some out of it that are like that.
If I take this rifle out and it doesn't shoot sub MOA, I'm going to sue you, Adam.
Okay, well, good luck. I hope you use good ammo. But I mean, realistically, it's a 5.5-inch barrel.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So like,
no, but that's incredible.
It is incredible.
It really is.
And we were like, holy moly, this gun can do things we didn't expect it to do.
Yeah.
When we went and tested this gun with the end users, this particular gun, we shot through a variety of vehicles, right? So we were in the car shooting through windscreens, as they call it, and looking at the deviation. And we were comparing it side by side with their in-service products. So shooting 9mm through an MP5K through a window, what happens? You dejacket the round, it maybe hits the target, but it's gonna be like a fragment. And it usually, the deviation coming through when you're inside a car shooting out, the deviation's like, it was like 15 meters that you had to aim basically at the hood of the car to even hit the target. And it would be like maybe 1 out of every 15 rounds would hit. When we did it with this, with the contract ammo that they were wanting, we were like 90% hit rate, which is incredible.
Right.
And even with the subsonic.
Yeah.
And that's because they were solid coppers, they're not dejacketing. They're a lot more barrier blind when it comes to glass. So there was so many benefits with this gun. It was just a no-brainer. And it really, I think the Rattler became one of the most popular MCXs of all time.
Yeah, so that is, I don't know when it's introduced actually to the commercial market, 2018, 2017?
The launch of the Virtus was when we introduced it commercially. Which
I thought it predates like the 5.5-inch Rattler.
No, the 5.5-inch Rattler launched with Virtus. We did like a video, and there was like a bunch of scenarios of people shooting, and that's when we launched it. That was the first time, and I can't remember the exact date. I think it's 2017-ish.
Yeah,
right
that sounds about right to me.
Or right before SHOT Show, probably, of 2017. And we delivered those guns for that contract to the customer. They've been using them, they're in service, they're great. They've ordered plenty more, and there's many, many other users that use it. But it is a niche gun, the 5.5-inch as it sits in your hand. It's very niche. It's really a specific role. They use it. You don't use this you wouldn't use this as an assaulter gun, for example. If you want that, it's going to be a different system. And
I can't get this anymore on the civilian market, the 5.5-inch.
Correct. Yes. So I mean, there's parts, you can still get the parts, but as you see it there, let's say it's M-LOK. Yes, we don't sell that commercially. Commercially,
shortest I can get
is the 6 3/4, which in reality, like if we're talking guns folded up side by side, you're talking really, this much.
Yeah. You're not really.
Like if I put this on a table, you're hard pressed to even know it's not a Rattler. But I can shoot significantly more ammo types. It's better when I'm shooting subsonics. There's more performance. There's a lot of benefits to this that I would say goes over that. But this is if you need the smallest gun that you can get. That's the one.
And this is going to piss off you, and I'm sorry, Ron Cohen, if you're watching this, but you guys still make and deliver this for government.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and so you're going to have a bunch of people now who are like, well, you know, if it's still being out there, like, you know how the guys are, like cloners and stuff like that. They're going to want it. So maybe you guys are going to have to do like a legacy release.
I'm sure there's always possibilities.
Yeah, but I mean, there's just, it just doesn't make sense for the commercial market when you can get this and have a better performing gun that's only slightly.
It works marginally different size.
Yeah. So I mean,
and the new Rattler. So this is the legacy. You can see that this has thicker upper receiver, has the thicker handguard. The new one is actually based on the LT, so it is the lighter upper. The profile of the handguard's lighter. It's just this, but take a 3/4 of an inch off the upper receiver.
So how did we get from here to there? Like, talk to me about you guys. You make this, the end users are happy. You release it to the commercial market 2017, 2018 phase, and then. And I know we've gone over this in the MCX video, but I think a lot of this you're going to have to retread some of that ground, talking about the improvements that were kind of made to the MCX.
So the Rattler actually drove significant improvements for the whole MCX line. Believe it or not, when you cut a barrel down to 5.5 inches and you run endurance tests and SOCOM stress cycles, it makes things break faster. The shorter your guns, like if you took a 16-inch AR-15 and compared it to a 10.3, you're going to break bolts faster in a 10.3, firing pins faster. There's a lot of things that break.
So in a way, it accelerated your development.
100%. Yeah, it forced us to get better. And so the lessons learned from this just translate why it's a no-brainer. We want the same parts in all the guns anyway. So there was a lot of things we had to do. We had to decrease the time it took to cock the hammer because we were finding disconnectors were wearing out faster because the bolt velocity on that was slightly faster.
Yeah.
And so we changed the geometry of how it's cocking that, kind of retard the speed a little bit. If you put the carriers side by side generationally, you'd be able to maybe see it, but it's just slight little tweaks that we did. But one of the biggest things that we did on this one, and I'm going to pull this out, it is quite dirty, so I don't want to get you. We added a firing pin safety lock. So this is when we added this in. And
why?
Yeah, so if everybody remembers 2016-ish time frame, we had what we called the mandatory safety upgrade. And it was, you send your gun in, we'll change out your bolt carrier group, and then send it back for free. Now, why did we do that? So 300 Blackout, it's not a NATO spec round. It's going through that process now. But at the time, there was primer sensitivity from super soft.
Wild West.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have like harder than woodpecker lips all the way down to like super butter soft. And the issue is when you have a floating firing pin and a very fast velocity carrier that has almost zero bolt bounce and is very efficient, there is the opportunity for that floating firing pin to impact a very soft primer and cause an ignition. We can't take that risk.
Yeah.
So what do we say? Well, we're going to make it so the firing pin is no longer floating. So we added in a firing pin safety lock, and there's a little lever here that locks the firing pin until the hammer disengages it. So the only way this can fire is when the hammer comes forward and strikes this lever and lifts it out of the way. That was purely for the 300 Blackout. It translates into, I'd say, better drop performance across the line. Because even in 5.56, if you're talking 2.23, there might be some soft primers as well. Well, a floating firing pin, if you drop a gun from 2-3 meters in the air, muzzle down, you can, I mean, on an M4, it can slam fire. So we've really adopted this across the board. Every new product that we make has some sort of a firing pin safety lock.
And there were also some other changes to the MCX. Like you were talking about using an AR-based platform about like the cam path wearing down.
Correct.
And so you made interchangeable hardened steel cam paths for the MCX. You talked about like the feed ramps, for example, the aluminum feed ramps getting worn down. So instead you use like a piece of hardened steel, right? In lieu of that. And then also like the latches for the charging handle. You found that those would wear down. So made these interchangeable steel. Now, all of those kind of minor improvements, were all of them incorporated to the first generation Rattler?
They were, yes.
So the Rattler basically was already like a really advanced version of the MCX when it was introduced.
Yes.
Yeah.
And during that development from this gun to, you can see this still has the skull up top. The production had a flat one. So from this gun to this gun, when we first launched this commercially, we had taken everything we learned and already put it into the Rattler. So it was there.
The Rattler is already pretty sophisticated.
It is, yes.
Yeah, and then so what changes do we have then going from here to there, and why?
So the only real, I would say, something that a user would notice is just the addition of these handguard screws. And then on the lower receiver, obviously the newer ones have ambidextrous bolt catch and release, and we have the steel reinforced QD cups in the lower. But if I took a Rattler, legacy Rattler, it would just be non-ambi there, aluminum instead of steel, and then slightly heavier profile. It's just heavier. The upper is lighter and the handguard's lighter. But other than that, they're pretty much the same engine. Nothing has changed. The barrels are pretty much the same. There's no huge changes between the original Rattler and the LT style Rattler when it comes to like the engine that's driving the gun. Although we have made improvements to the firing pin safety lock to make it more efficient. So the LT one, if you notice the one that you unlock on the top, the LT one's on the side. And the reason we really did that, so that firing pin safety lock, it's robust. We've got tons of rounds on it. We know it works, but it's hammer sensitive. So if you're using SIG product triggers, good to go.
No problem.
No problem. But it relies on the top geometry of the hammer to disengage it. So you need different latches for different hammers. And let's face it, when you say there's a mil-spec one, for example, like the Surge program, they have dropping on M4s. Well, who made the M4 trigger group? I don't know, was it FN, was it Colt? Were they all within the same tolerance band? So it's hard to make a one latch that does all. Also, it robs energy. It's about 20 to 25% of the energy of that hammer coming forward, it takes away. So for 7.62x39, which has super hard primers, you could run into the issue of having light strikes, right? So we're like, hey, we got to make some improvements. We want to have all three calibers be part of this new LT system. So we fixed, I wouldn't say we fixed, we improved the loss of energy. So that one, I'd say 20-ish%. Now we're at like 2%. So that means we don't, so for customers that had, military customers that had 7.62x39 in the legacy guns, we didn't really sell those commercially until the LT. We would sell them with heavy hammer springs to overcome that. And even then, if they were having light strike issues with like Russian style ammunition that they were in service ammo that they're grabbing in country, we would just tell them, hey, for that ammo, take out your firing pin safety lock. Not ideal. Now with the new one, I don't have to do that. I don't need the heavy hammer springs. And additionally, it doesn't rely on that geometry. It just relies on the width of the hammer. Every hammer has some width. So we just made it fit like 99.99% of all the triggers out there. You can change out and use it in your MCX. So commercially, not everybody wants this one. They might want to change it out.
Right.
I can tell you that this one is very durable, and not all of them are. And you might find that out as you shoot it enough.
Yeah.
Parts break, but you can change it if you want. We want it to be modular.
Right.
We want people to be happy with what they get. So that helped significantly. But realistically, back to the question, between this and what you have in even a legacy or an LT Rattler,
Not much.
Not much. No, I think a lot of the hard work was done back then.
Was there any other, you say like the hard work that's done back then, we kind of talked about some of the development. Were there any other details that you think are relevant to the development of this gun?
Yeah, so the name I think is pretty cool, and nobody ever knows the story and they get it wrong. People think it's called a Rattler because it rattles the fillings in your teeth or something like that. But the reality is this gun was never meant to be. Like, we were getting fought, and Ron, please don't kill me. We were getting fought from product management at that time. They didn't want it. They didn't want another product. It was too much to take on at that time, but we had to deliver for this customer because they're a great customer. And we believed in their mission, right? So the skunk work guys, me and some other guys, we were making stuff in the back room. That's why I was hiding it in my toolkit and hiding it in my backpack like a drug dealer, kind of holding it out. So it was a gun that was never meant to be. And in New Hampshire, there's rattlers that shouldn't live there. They should be dead because it's too darn cold. And that's why this gun is called the Rattler.
See,
Doug came up with that.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, nobody knows that.
Yeah.
So that's a Doug thing.
That's the real
and
name,
actually,
yeah.
a guy named Dave Wilkes, I think that was his contribution with that. And he was a huge part of that program. He no longer works at SIG. Master gunsmith, amazing guy. But yeah, that people think it's because of the name. It rattles your fillings in your teeth. It's super loud. It's a snake biting. But no, it's because it's something that shouldn't exist, and it does. And it's pretty awesome.
So we've talked about accuracy, but reliability, of course, is critical for a platform like this. What kind of like MRBS medium rounds between stoppages or any sort of testing that you did, how did that play out?
So we worked really hard on that. That our goal was to not have any degradation between the 6 3/4 and the longer length MCXs and the Rattler. So I think a majority of our focus was like, this gun has to be super reliable. This is your last ditch gun. It's the gun you're pulling out to save your life and get out of town. So it has to work every single time. Now, that's a challenge when you have a short barrel, right? We were fortunate that we were working with a small amount of ammunition types. Now, MRBS is a loaded question.
Yeah.
Am I using like really junky ammo that costs half as much as something else? Or am I using like a precision, like high quality ammunition? It really comes down to what kind of gas do you put in the race car, right? And I think that's one thing people kind of forget. If you buy a weapon system and you feed it junk, you might have junk results. But I would say there is no degradation between the rest of the MCXs and the Rattler. It is super reliable. The only time you might run into issues is if you're running a flow suppressor, and I'm talking the legacy one, not the 6 3/4 here. This one's, we got more dwell. Is if you're running a flow suppressor and you're running very low functioning subsonic ammo, you might run into lockback failures, you might get some bolt over base feeding issues. But if your weapon's clean and maintained, those are pretty low risks. It really comes down to the ammo that you're putting in the gun at the end of the day.
But if I want like the ultimate reliability, durability, accuracy, that's it.
This gun right here.
I mean, it's just as good as any of the bigger ones.
Yeah, so the 6 3/4 really birthed the MCX. We have the most time in testing on the 6 3/4 at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This gun made the MCX with the LVW program and all the other customers. I can confidently say a 6 3/4 inch configured gun is probably in about 35 countries right now in use with special operations and some very high-end police agencies, federal agencies. It is a workhorse. It works. It is super robust, very reliable, and I can confidently say, and it's not, take the shirt off, throw it in the trash. Well, I wouldn't do that, but take the shirt off.
It's a nice shirt. Yeah, it's 511.
It's
right?
511. Take the shirt off.
Check.
It's the best 300 Blackout gun there is. You can argue with me, but I want to see it. Test it. I've never lost a competitive trial with this gun.
Good ammo, unsuppressed. Can I run 1,000 rounds without cleaning it?
100%.
2,000.
Yes.
3,000.
Yes.
4,000.
Yes.
God, come on, help me out. Where stop?
So the most I've personally done with a customer is this was suppressed, so it's dirtier. With a non-flow can, we shot 7,000 rounds without cleaning it or lubricating it.
And how many failures?
None.
Zero.
Zero.
Okay. All right. So that's.
But then once we got to that 7,000 round threshold, we started to see some like lockback failures. So it was getting a little sluggish. But this was a very compressed timetable. So I can't confidently say 7,000's the right number.
Oh, sure. But I mean, all we have is anecdotal evidence because like at a certain point, it doesn't make any sense. No, and typically what you guys are getting are requirements. I mean, you told me that there was a 20,000 requirement, but that was a different testing threshold.
And there's a thing to take into consideration when you talk about those numbers. It's very impressive. It sounds fake, but it's different than shooting 100 rounds every day for years.
Yeah, sure.
Because I put this gun away, that carbon hardens up, things change, the oil evaporates over time. It's different. If I'm shooting an endurance test, the results are not the same. And I think people kind of take that, oh, 20,000 rounds, that means I don't have to clean my gun ever. No, that's not what that means. That means that you have a significantly more reliable gun, but if you don't do your part, like, it's on you.
Adam, would you Pepsi challenge this against a Krinkov?
I would. This gun.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Any day
And
of the
you
week.
think it would come out on top?
Depends what we're going to do with it.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not going to like pour kerosene on
But
it.
I
and
mean,
light it on fire.
to even say like it's, comparable to like the Kalashnikov system.
This gun, if we're talking like just supersonic, they're shooting supers, we're shooting, I'll put this gun against anything. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you know this. I have drank the Kool-Aid. This is like one of my most favorite guns. So I was hoping to hear you say that. I'm really glad we got to have this conversation. Guys, if you're watching this on TFBTV, stay tuned because we also have the MCX, the full story of the MCX. We're also going to talk about how to best set up like your MCX and how to best set up your Rattler. Adam, it is an honor to have you on the program. It truly is. Guys, it's an honor to have you guys watching. We've been doing this for a little over 11 years now. We couldn't do it without you. Thanks again and take care.